Hello, darling. Um, Welcome to your newest tarot reading. You'll notice I have a little change of scenery behind me. This is my new tarot slash study slash everything on that back wall is Morgan's magic cards and other personal items. We also had, you'll see it like air mattress behind me. We had one of our housemates had a guest last night, so um, our office served as the guest room. But I got a sweet little setup here, and uh, excited. I can show you a little bit. Wall hanging that a fellow yogi gave me before I left Salem. So I've actually never been able to hang this. I'm kind of happy. Morgan loves bright colors too, so it fit for him as well. We're using a new deck today. It's the Anima Mundi Tarot, and it actually means it's like breath of the world, I think is what it means. Let me see. A friend turned me onto this deck. I had to get it. The world's soul is what it means. And these are absolutely beautiful cards. You can see they're lined in like gold, and they have a really beautiful back. You'll see the illustrations are phenomenal. And of course, I've been reflecting on you and just inviting everyone in who has something to say to you. I was thinking too, like how much of a difference it makes when I love doing a reading for someone, and I really enjoy doing readings for you. I think it's partially because you're so open to it, and then also because like I get to journey with you through doing readings for you, and that makes me really happy. So looks like we need to do one more shuffle here, and then I'm gonna do Celtic cross spread. Pretty typical for me. It just really gives me all the information I need. So you don't need any of the precursors or disclaimers or anything. So let's jump into it. Also, this is still a fairly new deck to me, so I'm not reading any reversals, just so you know. Some of these, it's almost impossible to figure out what the reversal even looks like. Just the way they're designed. All right, let me give you my pink drink. I'm really excited to hear about what you're doing next. After Plexus, and I kind of want to gossip about your conversation with Justine. But let me show you what's going on here. So get up there too. So the resolution card, I felt like I needed, that's that top one there by the candles. I felt like they needed to draw two more cards with that. So I have a feeling they're going to illuminate a little bit about what's going on. Um, so, okay, what we've got here, you in the present, we have an Ace of Wands. And sweet little card here. God, I wish you could be here with me because these cards are so gorgeous. So Ace of Wands, wands symbolizing spirituality and that aspect of ourselves and of our lives. Ace being the beginning. So and there's a lot that's sticking out in this card for me. One is that there are these little flower buds on the wand stick and like little new sprouts. And ace generally symbolizes new beginnings. So there's this aspect of like a new it's kind of like in spring when it's like after that long winter, you have spring come, and that moment when you notice like the little leaf sprouts on the branches, there is that feeling of that promise of new life and new growth. And I think this seems like right now you're really in a season of new adventures and possibilities when it comes to the spiritual side of yourself. And I kind of liken this to like when I stumbled on a new understanding of spirituality and how exciting that felt. My most recent situation would be probably honestly when I bought my first tarot, when I went to my first tarot reading and then bought my first tarot deck, because that was an aspect of spirituality that I had always been really curious about, but hadn't let myself explore. And when I finally opened that door, it felt so exciting and mysterious, and I just wanted to spend all my time with my tarot cards, and I did for a long time, doing readings for myself and friends. The first deck I got was an oracle deck, and I did a reading for myself like every morning with those cards. I loved that deck. And then I bought an actual tarot deck, and I spent a lot of time with that too. So it's just kind of that feeling. That's what I'm getting here, is like new life, new growth. It's all centered around your spiritual life. There's also mushrooms, and for some reason the mushrooms keep sticking out to me. They have kind of this cartoony effect, like what you might see in a cartoon with like the red-capped mushrooms and the little white stems. The irony, though, is that red-capped mushrooms are generally poisonous. So I'm wondering if there's almost even a little bit of a warning in this, that to beware of toxic factors that may be creeping in and trying to poison this new beginning for you. And in this scenario, I would say this probably honestly comes in the form of people and their opinions, because those tend to be the most toxic things that we encounter, especially in our spiritual lives. People love to have an opinion, and I think about a lot of like Christians, especially. I had my great aunt, whom I love dearly, unfriended me on Facebook because of tarot. She didn't want to see tarot in her news feed anymore. And when I, asked her about it, she's like, well, would it matter? Like, if we talked about it, what would it matter? You wouldn't change your mind. And I'm like, well, that's not really what talking about things is for. And also, that's not really what relationships are for. And so it took me a while to not be hurt by that, but to recognize that her unfriending me was probably the best thing that could happen for me in that area of my life, because I didn't have that toxic opinion to tell me that I was doing something wrong. Um, Recent past, we have the Queen of Pentacles, and I love this. Like, there's like this mama deer, and Pentacles really address the material world for us. Being the Queen of Pentacles, there is an aspect both of like empowered femininity, and also just getting shit done. You know, there's like the queen steps up and gets shit done, and that's really her role in the situation. So, kind of coming out of a period where really setting your material things in your material world in order. That does include like living situation, job, financial stability, and wellness. Uh, even even relationships, that can include relationships. It's really anything that you is tangible, anything you can touch. Um, in your near future, we have the Eight of Pentacles. We've got these two little beavers on opposite sides. And what strikes me about this card is there's a sense of, beavers are really incredible animals. They're very industrious, of course, but they're also highly adapted. So they have teeth that can literally chew wood. They have a digestive system that digests wood particles. Like, it's incredible to me. They use wood to build, and in that process, they can eat it as well. Like, they can sustain themselves on it. They also have this incredible fur where it's layered, so that the inside layer is real downy and thick and keeps them warm in cold water temperatures, and then the outside fur is oiled. Like, they have an oil they produce to protect them from getting wet. So all that downy under fur stays dry to keep them warm. They're highly adapted so that they can go on both land and water. I think we've talked about that in the past. Being able to traverse both land and water means being able to navigate both the material and the esoteric world. So, keeping things in order in your material world while at the same time diving really deep into the emotional, and being able to go back and forth with ease between those two. It's a really healthy that's a really healthy place for humans to find themselves, because I think, especially in our culture, unfortunately, we strive too hard to be experts at the material world. And then when the emotional world creeps up, instead of being able to just dip into the water, we are overwhelmed by it and often drowned out by it. So we, adapt coping mechanisms to help us deal with that emotional overwhelm. So I think that's part of what's happening here is like, highly adapted creatures. This is your near future, okay? Finding in themselves skilled. It's interesting though that there are two on opposite sides of kind of this barrier. And so to me, there's two things that strike me here. One is two people in your life, you and someone else, who are trying to build something together but not connecting. And so there being some conflict or tension there, but that really being a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So two parts of yourself that are unable at this point to connect and reconcile, and in the effort to build something. So there's an aspect here of building something in the material world and needing to reconcile those parts of yourselves. Hold on just a second. I need to look up something really quick. I always forget I was just looking ahead to some of the cards because I wanted to see how they were like interacting with this. Like, are we going to get an answer to this conflict that I'm sensing? And, but I always forget what these lower parts of the Celtic crossbred mean. So I'm just going to pull that up real quick so that I should just download this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to get some interesting answers here. Um, okay. The card overlaying these, which is either our bridge or our barrier, is 6 in the major arcana. It's the Chariot. And honestly, I think this is a barrier. Okay, so I guess it's interesting to say that it could be a bridge or a barrier when more and more I'm finding that it really depends on how you take the energy. It could be a bridge for you or it could be a barrier. So that's actually what I'm picking up here. And in this, I'm getting this like, we have this mountain, like mountain sheep, longhorned sheep. Let me see what it's called actually. She names the animals that she uses here. So let me see what she says. She's named this one. Sorry, it's actually 7, the major arcana. It's the ram. So, okay. And I think she kind of outlines why it could be a bridge or a barrier. The Chariot is self-reliant, energetic, and strong. So it's literally the energy that you're going into your near future with. You will be met with competition and many obstacles, but your willpower and focus will lead to ultimate success. Have faith in yourself, take the reins, and be in control of your destiny. So what I'm sensing is there is that power, that really empowered energy of taking control, moving forward with confidence, like self-reliance, all of that. But there's also that ram energy, which is stubborn, can be very short-sighted, and can be very willful and forceful. And that's where I think you get that tension between the bridge and the barrier, because you've got one side where it's like, I'm taking charge of my destiny, and I'm gonna, that empowered energy versus that willful, forceful energy. So really, to move forward through, I think this conflict is to the conflict, inner conflict, and the outer conflict that may develop because of it, is to spend time in self-reflection so that you can notice, am I being empowered and confident, or am I being willful and forceful? And it's a very subtle distinction between the two. Being able to navigate forward and allow things to flow and participate in that versus forcing the flow to happen are very different things. And I think it'll be important for you to really tune in to that, to spend some time reflecting, not in judgment, but just of going, oh, when I'm not seeing any open doors, or I feel like maybe I'm kind of butting my head against this door and this door trying to get it open. That's that willful, forceful situation, okay? So then to step back and go, okay, well then if the energy's not flowing that direction, which direction is it flowing? And then to allow yourself to change course, even just a little bit, so that you can go where the energy is actually going. I kind of had this discussion with a friend of mine recently because she's starting a coffee truck, and she's like, we talked about doing a fundraiser, like a big, like, I mean, she won we were talking about raising $20,000, so doing like a GoFundMe for that. And I got really excited because I love planning something like that. She's like, I'm I'm just not super excited about that. And I'm also like, I need to get estimates for electricity and stuff for revamping my trailer. So, and I just can't find the right person for that, and it's really holding me up. And I needed us, and I was like, wait. Let's then I said just go where the energy is. If right now the energy is not in, you can't get an estimate for electricity, then it's not time for that yet. Like someone has not yet come into your life that's going to fulfill that thing. And honestly, if you're not cool or not excited about doing a fundraiser, then we should not do it because it's going to fail. And there's nothing more like demoralizing than pushing for something forward that takes a lot of energy and work and then having it fail. So that's one thing I would encourage you to do. Step back, self-reflect, notice where you're having like, differentiating between those two lines. Hopes and fears. In the fear category, we have the Two of Pentacles. And what I'm getting from this, two things: fear that you're not going to be able to make it happen. Also fear that you're going to have to do it alone. Also, something I find interesting here is that there's a snake weaving its way through, and it's very subtle. It's almost imperceptible at first, but it definitely stuck out. And it goes back to kind of those toxic mushrooms. Like, I think there's ultimately a fear that you're going to, whatever you felt like was poisonous, whatever you feel like is poisonous now. And I have a feeling you know what I'm talking about, like that you have a sense that there are some toxic elements in your current situation. I think the fear is that that's going to develop and continue to interweave through what you're creating. In the hopes category, we have the Six of Swords. And I'm going to look this one up because I'm not getting an immediate, nothing's striking me here. So, Six of Swords. Excuse me. So, this says it's a somber card about picking up the pieces and moving on. A regretful but necessary transition, one that will benefit you in the long term. And I think that's where the hope is coming in, is that even in the midst of your grief and sadness over the transition that you're in, your hope is that it is for your long-term well-being and health. So, okay. Your approach to it is the Ten of Cups. And I think what's fascinating about this card is we have a school of fish. We have a lot of fish. And they are all swimming toward the light. And so I think it seems like your approach is to really amass community of like-minded people around you, and to continue moving toward what you consider to be the light, or the light at the end of the tunnel, or moving toward a common goal that ultimately brings light and healing to everyone involved. And so in your amassing of community, what's unique is that you're not just doing it to benefit you. And some people build infrastructure into their lives, like they network to benefit themselves. And really, your goal, your heart is to network and connect people so that you can all help each other move toward a more beneficial situation for everyone. So I think that's something that desire to have mutuality is going to serve you well, because that is ultimately that communal approach, I think, is what we as a world are even moving toward, like a global community are moving toward. And I think the climate strike yesterday is a huge um, uh, piece of evidence toward that fact. Um, and we see people coming together for a commonality, a common good that moves all of society and all the communities around the world to a world that is sustainable, again, for all global societies. So your environment is the Two of Swords. We've got a lot of pairs going on here, which I think is fascinating to me because, sorry, I've got text coming through all of a sudden. Because, well, pairing, oh my gosh. I have a friend who can't just type everything in one text, so she sends 8 texts. I apologize if you heard any of that beeping. It was really distracting me for a minute. The pairing, I think, is interesting. With this one, I see, okay, so it's darkness, and the swords are crossing one another. So I see there's a sense that what is developing, your environment, what is where this new thing is developing, is really it's like in the shadows, so it's not fully out into the light, under the direction of the moon, which is a very feminine connection. Women are, our cycles are dictated by the cycles of the moon. So the moon has always guided women and given them direction for the rhythms of their lives. And I like that the swords are crossing each other because there is a sense of coordination and mutuality there. So even though it's almost like, even though you've got this, what we talked about, like the tension, potential tension in, oh my gosh, she's sending me more text. I am currently showing 9 notifications for her. I'm so sorry. What we're showing here with the potential conflict, inner conflict, you're actually in an environment for that to be remedied fairly easily. And so I would say, even though I brought that up and it's something to be aware of, it doesn't seem like it's something that you should be fearful of, because you're actually in an environment where coordination and communication should flow fairly easily, even if it's not out in the wide open. So this might be a very private conversation that you're having with yourself and you feel protective of it, not yet ready to share it. But it also might be a conversation that you're having, or communication you're having with another party, and recognizing like, hey, we're still in the incubation period, so let's kind of keep this under wraps and not worry about bringing it out into the light yet until we know that it's really ready to be fully shared. what you need to know. We have the Ten of Wands. And what I like about this picture, what I think is interesting, is that in order for all these pieces in order for this structure to happen, all of these pieces are leaning interdependently and equally upon the other. And so it's like, it's almost this sense of the pieces will come together and they will interact. They will interact in an cooperative in a cooperative way. I want to look this one up though too, because I feel like I'm getting a feeling of how it looks, but I need some more words. Okay, so this is interesting. You've worked hard to accomplish your goals, but now you must deal with the burden of success. And I always find this interesting because I think it's Marianne Williamson that talks about how we're not afraid of failure, we're actually afraid of success. And that quote, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but if you're not, Google it. I think it's very pointed. And I know for myself personally, I have definitely faced the fear of success. Because with success comes more responsibilities and higher level decision making. It's almost like you don't get to turn back now, girl. Like once you've set this thing in order, that's the level you operate on. And I think if you've not yet operated on that level, it is intimidating to think about like, well, how do I be successful operating on that level if I've never tried it and I don't know how. And that's actually when I'm looking back at the fears card, the Two of Pentacles, that's also what I'm sensing with the snake, is that's that little fear creeping forward. It's like, do I have what it takes to be successful in this? Okay. You find that in order to stay on top, you must maintain the responsibilities you've created and keep working. You may even need to let go of some of those responsibilities to avoid overburden. So I think that's also part of next level thinking, is that you don't need to have a finger or a hand on everything that's going on. You can delegate responsibilities and still trust that success will happen. And I think that really separates a lot of successful people from unsuccessful people, is that they get to that next level of operation and they think they have to micromanage everything. And so it would be, I think what's important for you to know going forward is that as you're recruiting people into your vision of things in your project, it's okay to choose people that you trust to do a good job and then give them the responsibility of caring for that aspect of your vision. And so what that means is you may have to let go of the outcome of your vision. You may have to say, hey, here's my vision overall. Can you help me manifest this aspect of it? And then you have to really give that person, you have to empower them and trust them to make decisions. And if they make a decision that doesn't line up, you have to be open to communicating with them and helping them course correct, okay? But also really holding loosely what you expect the outcome to be, because it may very well be that that person you've empowered and brought in to work with you has an even better outcome than you could have ever imagined. And they really are able to take your vision and get it to that outcome. So that's kind of the beauty of bringing people alongside you, is that they have they also have their own perspective and creative abilities and skill set. And if they feel like you're going to back them up, they're going to feel really safe to explore creative things. I was thinking about this. I was listening to a Radiolab episode yesterday. I don't know if you listen to Radiolab or not, but it's a really cool podcast. And the way they approach exploring ideas is really fascinating to me, because they tend to allow someone to take their idea and flesh it out, and they will ask like questions along the way, and it's almost like you get to be a part of their thought process. They were talking about how one of their producers, this, she doesn't work for them anymore, but she used to, she called up the main person. So there are two main people. There's Jad and Robert, and they founded this show and hosted this show. And she called up Jad and she's like, hey, can you meet me at the studio? I have an idea. And they just started recording. And she starts telling him, and she even tells him, I don't even have a firm idea for what I want to do with this. I'm thinking maybe I'll write a book or an article or a short story about it. And she starts telling him, and she said, I'm even confused. I don't have like a resolution for this. And she starts telling the story, and he's like, oh no, we should make this a radio show. And what I found really impressive was that he just sat back and listened to her idea. And because she felt safe, knowing he wouldn't dismiss her or call her crazy or be like, that doesn't fit with the like vision of our show, she was able to then like kind of openly process an experience she had, and then allow it to take its course. And so what I saw in that was a person who created something saying, I have found this talented person, and I trust that if they bring me an idea, that we may not know the answers immediately, but we can really walk through it together and explore it together. And I think that's the hallmark of a good visionary and a good leader, is to say, I have these people I am entrusting with my vision, and part of that entrusting is knowing that even as they process their ideas, we're going to be able to work through those ideas together. So cooperation and coordination are just two words that keep coming back over and over and over again. Resolution, we have the 5 of Pentacles, and this is actually, it seems like a very foreboding card, because it's really a time of barrenness, but it's actually just a time of seeming barrenness. And what it can really mean is it's okay for right now for you and your idea to go into kind of a state of hermitage and retreat. You know, when you think about the winter, it's almost amazing that it's coinciding with the actual seasons of our lives. To go into a time of solitude and hibernation so that something can be incubated and grow. And the two, we're approaching the end, so I'm not trying to rush, but I definitely want to get to, I want to wrap things up for you. The two cards that got laid along with that are the 11 in the major arcana, which is justice, and also 1 in the major arcana, which is the magician. And so it's almost like the reassurance here is that good, powerful things will come out if you allow yourself to go into this incubation period. And just trust that, 1, you're going to have all the tools you need. That's the magician. You're going to have everything you need. And I love even that it has like the moth, right? So there's kind of this like, like think about yourself. If you go into this time of hermitage, it really is like going into the chrysalis and allowing yourself to be reformed and come out as another thing. If you can, find the book Hope for the Flowers. I think Karen Pauling or Katrina Pauling is the one who wrote it, Pauling. I could be very wrong, but it's the story of two little caterpillars and them recognizing this deep, deep, deep desire to be higher, to be off the ground and be higher. And they spend a lot of time thinking that the avenue is one way to that, only to realize that it's actually to transform and get wings. And that's how they get higher. So, beautiful story. It'll make you cry. But allowing yourself to go into this hibernation period, knowing that you're going to come out of it with all the tools that you need. And also that justice will be done on your behalf. So it may seem like you're retreating from a fight, that you really feel like if I leave this situation, I'm going to lose out big time. Trust that the energy is leading you to retreat for a reason, and that things will be righted on your behalf. You don't have to be physically, emotionally, spiritually present to make that happen. I'm just getting that there's like a tension of like, well, but if I retreat, if I back down from this situation, then I'm admitting defeat and I may not get the outcome I need. Go where the energy is taking you. And the energy, if it's taking you into a retreat, incubation period, trust that it's because that's actually the higher goal, not winning in this situation over here. That situation will right itself. You don't have to actually be a party to it. And I'm thinking of a situation in my own life too where I'm struggling with that personally, and that's with the housing situation that I mentioned, my previous housing situation where I really felt that it was unfair that I wasn't getting money back for rent for September. And I have been battling how to approach that. And even with I reached out to another housemate and I was going to kind of like play dumb and wheedle some information out of him. And I'm like, just don't feel that it's necessary. Like, I'm kind of wrestling with that too. Of like, I feel like it's time for me to move on and really release and let go of that and let go of the outcome that I think is fair, which is that I be reimbursed, and allow the cards to fall where they may. And so if you're kind of experiencing a similar situation where there's an injustice happening and you feel like I need to stand up for myself, I think while I'm obviously I'm an overly strong advocate for standing up for ourselves, I do think there are times where a higher order is in place. And right now, the higher order is what's incubating inside of you, what you're developing on that next level. And because you're being invited to go to the next level, I think it's time to kind of put down the arguments and disagreements of the level you're currently on. Because letting go, there's a sense of that letting go of that lower order vibration is going to allow you to move up to the next order. And you're kind of in a sense telling the universe like, okay, cool. I'm actually done with the squabbles of this level. I'm ready to generate new and healthier situations and interactions for myself and for what I'm trying to build in this world. And that confidence, like that belief, will help settle the squabbles that you're in. And if nothing else, it will at least just help settle them within yourself so that you don't feel like you're having that internal squabble. Okay, darling. I'm getting that there should be one more card. We're over time, but you're my girl, so I take care of you. I usually get a settled feeling when it's time, and I'm not getting that. So interesting. Okay. Okay. So we have the Nine of Swords. And it's interesting because we have like a turkey vulture or a buzzard up there. Yeah. This is really a very strong message of let it go. If you continue to pick at the squabble that you're in, here's the imagery. What does a buzzard or like a turkey vulture, what are they really reaching for, right? It's something that's dead and decaying. And essentially, this argument, this squabble that you're in, whether it's with yourself or external or both, it's old matter. It's decaying matter. It's something that no longer has relevance to you, even if it feels so personal. It is not important. Okay. In fact, it's so unimportant that it's dead, decaying matter. The last thing you want to be in this scenario is a turkey vulture picking at the remnants of something. Okay, that's not for you anymore. Your next level vibration, which is like life and growth and abundance. It's the opposite of dead and decaying. All right, you're reaching toward life and growth and abundance. And if you need to keep saying that to yourself to remind you to let go of the dead, decaying thing, do it. You know what? I don't need to touch that. I'm reaching toward life and growth and abundance. And I am aiming myself toward life and growth and abundance. All right, now I feel settled and done. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. I am curious to hear about what's going on in your life, if any of this resonates with you or not, what you've gotten from it. Again, I think I may have shared this with you before, but I feel compelled to share it now, which is that don't stress yourself too much with getting my words exactly, but rather focus on how you interpreted what was said, what images, phrases, etc. came to mind for you. I love you, darling, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.